Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Naru FastCast. So today I'm going to talk to you about the one diet that I think works for everybody, and that is a diet of consistency. The reason is that nothing will work whether you are doing keto, intermittent fasting, low carb, carnivore, vegan, whatever you want to do without doing it consistently. So between all the dieting outcomes, the one thing that resonates between most studies tends to be the consistency of the application of the diet, irrespective of the type of diet that you choose. So it comes back to, if you make sure that you are regularly doing something that overall benefits your health, you are going to have an overall increase in benefit from your health over a long enough time horizon. Last week's podcast, we talked very much about the input and the output and monitoring that especially. We said that what gets monitored gets changed. And I think one thing that you can monitor for in a way is consistency. You know, have you consistently done something every single day? If the answer is yes, then usually you're going to get a consistent outcome over a long enough time horizon. And the reason why I keep coming back to that is that we always want to see, well, this diet's great. I've lost 20 pounds or I've lost 5 kilograms. And you're kind of like, fantastic. And then you kind of go, let's ask them again in 6 months' time. Oh, put it all back on again. And you're like, oh no, what happened? They're like, I did really well at the start. And then, Easter came in and this came in and that came in. And I kind of just fell off the bandwagon and I stopped. And you're like, you've been doing so well. Yeah, I know. And then it stops. So being boring and doing small things that are consistently good for you are where you're going to get the stacking effect. Now, this is really what I wanted to talk about, is that the compounding effect of doing things so regularly. Now, what a lot of the things is like, I said this last week, you're going running. Oh, what you're doing, you're training for a marathon. No, I'm just going to go running for like a mile a day. And you're like, oh, that's not very far. And I get into this habit. I'll say, well, if I can't go for a 5k run, well, what's the point of going out? Because, well, like this week, I know that going out every day doing 3k has meant that this week alone I've ran 15k this week, which is more than when I said to myself, oh, I can only go out and do at least 5k every time. So I managed 2 runs. So I've done, a third more because I've had the mindset, well, I'll just do it consistently, even if it is 3k run, even if it is just for me to go out and get my heart rate up for 15 minutes or however long it is. And once you change that mindset, it does allow progression to occur, because if you were to take a few things, now for me, my morning routine is waking up fasted. I wake up about 5:45 and I do a workout. I go downstairs and I put one of our rehydration sachets in a litre of water and I start drinking it as I start throughout the morning. I then will do a cold plunge. I will then get some sunlight in my eyes. I tend to do my workout barefooted, so it means I get some grounding in. And then I also will always see the kids in the morning. We have a family cuddle in bed for about 10-15 minutes. I tend to sort of make the boys breakfasts and do all these different types of things, because overall, when I've done those regularly for months and months and months on end, it has led to me feeling overall better. Now, I might be getting, say, 2% benefit from my fasting. I might be getting 1% benefit from my cold plunge, 1% benefit from my electrolytes, delaying my coffee, the sunlight, the grounding, the connection in the morning, the dopamine hit that I get from doing some housework, because effectively it's like committing to doing an activity and completing it will help me release some dopamine in the morning. And consistently doing that means that if I do that each week and it kind of compounds and makes me feel 10% better, then if I look and see, wow, so if I'm doing that every day for an entire year, how much better am I going to be at the end of the year than if I just did it for a short period of time, but just did really intensely? And that's the problem. We tend to kind of have someone that comes along and then, judges us from an external thing of saying, oh, right, you're only working out for half an hour a day? Oh, I go to the gym for 2 hours a day. And you're like, okay, cool. That's good for you, but I can only do half an hour. And I only do half an hour, and I might not do work out as hard as you do, or mine might not be as efficient or might be as good as your workout, but that's good enough for me. Because ultimately, it doesn't really matter where anyone else is. If you're in a situation where you want to run a marathon and your training isn't good enough, well, then of course that's your responsibility to go and train more. But if your goal is to be healthy and to be happy, to be active, to be level-minded, to be engaged, to be comfortable in your own skin, be happy with your body, and all these different types of things. If they're your goals, it doesn't matter if your goal isn't to do a half Ironman, because I've got guilt into that. To talk about how fit I am, I almost have to revert back to the fittest that I've been, and I go, oh well, I did a half Ironman. People are like, oh right, that's cool, and then it's like, why? That was 7 years ago, so I haven't done a half Ironman now. And we always kind of hang our kind of achievements on these, or hang our sort of how good we are on the things that we've achieved. And a lot of the time they tend to be past achievements because we consistently don't do it for long enough. Now, I find that what helps for me is my goal this year, as we probably said time and time again, is that we're paddleboarding across the channel for Great Ormond Street, and we are, my brother Josh as well, and we are going to be setting a Guinness World Record for the fastest time to stand-up paddleboard across the English Channel. So my goals are very different to me having to be sat on a bike, in the evening for 2 or 3 hours, grinding out the turbo trainer, because that's not really going to benefit me too much. My training needs to be tailored to the type of exercise I'm going to be doing. So then when people say, oh, how many miles are you running this week, or what's the other metric, your VO2 max, what's that like, and things like this. And currently I want my VO2 max to be as good as it can be, but doing what I need to do right now to achieve my goal in a bit, which is in 2 or 3 months time I'll be paddleboarding, so I need to make sure that all my muscles have muscular strength, flexibility and endurance. So your goals are different to other people's goals, and just because someone's doing, I met a guy the other day that was doing 5 Ironmans back to back in over 5 days and stuff like this. I'm just like, that's mental. But his kind of his goals and outcomes are completely different to mine, and just because people are achieving such heights physically doesn't necessarily always mean that in the next 10 years' time they're going to be as healthy as you are. But we always have to expand our train of thought to a longer horizon to make sure that we are going to be consistently doing what we set out doing over a long period of time. So if you want to change, become a vegetarian, make that change, but be consistent with that change. I have become a vegetarian, and I did it for about 6 months and it made me feel horrific. So I've then now, over the last 3 years, been on a animal-based diet, and it makes me feel amazing. Now, I can see myself eating this type of diet for the rest of my life very easily. And therefore, it's then entrenched in, my wife doesn't need to ask me now when she's doing the weekly shop, she doesn't really need to ask what I'm going to have, because she kind of knows that that's what I kind of eat and that's what I'm going to be eating. So we don't need to have this conversation about, oh, what am I going to have this week? Oh, I'm bored of that. I am bored. You do get bored of eating similar things, but then that's up to you to try and vary your knowledge of what you can and can't eat within that sort of lifestyle that you've chosen. I've chosen, and it's up to me if I can be bothered to do that, or I have the time and I know I can do that consistently. If I can't, then I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to add a stress on top of that, because what you need to be doing is, I know that I can enjoy this food and I can eat consistently. And the biggest thing is once you start doing something consistently, you start getting consistent outcome. So your input becomes consistent and your output becomes consistent. you then start to get this feedback loop that goes, oh, right, so if I do this every day, like I don't have any IBS, don't have any headaches, my sort of like eczema's good, I feel energetic, I feel more happy, I feel like I just feel healthy, I feel better. Okay, cool. So if I then consistently do this, and then you kind of go, well, what does consistency look like? Okay, so consistency might look like, well, I'm going to do it 5 days a week. So you do it for 5 days a week over a 3-month period, and you kind of go, don't know if I can get away with doing it 5 days a week. I feel like I need to be doing it 7. Do it 7 days a week, you go, okay, there's a sweet spot. Doing it 7 days a week was fine, but it means that actually in that 7 days I'm doing the majority of the diet consistent, then it means that I can get away with, having takeaways once or twice a week, or whatever you kind of feel like you'd like to do, or maybe having a sweet treat each day, or breaking that thing, but just adding something in that just makes it feel non-restrictive, that you can do consistently. And that really, I've done 8, coming up 9 years of fasting. And for the first 6 years of fasting, I was getting really great benefits. This is why I did it for so long. And it just became a part of me that I now do. But it wasn't until 3 years ago when I really decided to make a big change that I stuck to it. And I said this before on podcasts about taking out milk and things that were sugar-free but still had carbohydrate in them. And I stopped doing that. I was like, oh my, this is like amazing. I feel so much better from doing it more religiously. And then when this is where sort of our company was born from, was when we were like, still something missing. And then we started adding electrolytes into our diet, especially first thing in the morning. And I was like, oh, right, so this is what it feels like to wake up with lots of energy and not to have 2 or 3 coffees to get me out the door. I'm like, I can get to work having no coffee now until like 10 o'clock. Oh my God, this feels really good. And then when I have that coffee, it makes me feel amazing. It gives me so much mental focus and I feel so good. And I'm like, wow, maybe I should have done this 6 years ago, and just how much different I would have been now. But you'll kind of go, okay, cool. And then something might change. Your lifestyle might change. You might change a job where you have to work earlier, or you go to work later, or it means you might enter in something that gives you shift work, and then you've got to reset it all again. But it's that sort of scientist inside you of like, prepared to commit to something and prepared to fail at something, but prepared to learn from what you failed at, re-implement something, so change your input, then it means your output can change. And if that doesn't match, so if your input's changing but your output's not going to where you want to be, then you need to make another change and keep going. And I think this is where the consistency thing comes in, is that doing something at the start sucks and it takes a long time to actually build up to giving you the reward from it. But if you can consistently do it, you will consistently end up getting an outcome. And you might find that outcome after 3-6 months isn't what you want. But but you have to consistently try it. Doing it for weeks will not give you enough information, will not give you enough feedback to know whether it's actually going to help long term. You do need to commit months to these things. And it's the same thing with anything. If you want to start a new business, or you want to, change something in your relationship, or do something with your kids, it's going to take a while for them to get used to the change, and you just need to be consistent with it. We did it with our children, where in the week they are having TV on in the morning was a nightmare. So for weeks it was a nightmare. They I can't have TV. No, why can't we have TV in the mornings? And they just were like zombies, and we couldn't get them out of the house on time. It was always such a stress. We all got angry with the kids, they got angry at us, and it was just not a nice experience. So we changed it. Now the boys will say to us, oh, we don't have TV. If the TV comes on, they go, oh, Dad, can you turn the TV off? And I'm like, oh, okay. They're like, yeah, we don't have it, do we, in the week? And you're like, no, we're not boys. And it's changed. It's habit for them. Now, if I turned around to them and said, boys, you want TV on today? They'll probably say yes, to be honest. But now it's like, now we're in the Easter period. They know they go down and have TV on because it's not school time in the morning. Now, just because it's consistent, we know that it's been consistently the same. So if it's school time, they don't have TV on. If it's in their holiday time, then things become more loose because it's holiday time, right? But they've done that over a period of time, that when it goes back, they completely switch back into not knowing they won't have TV in the morning. Now, this sounds like a little change, but these changes, like in every, whether it's a family dynamic or whether it's your health, they do just take a consistent amount of time to change and to be implemented, because you're always going to get the struggle part at the start. You're going to get the time where you feel like you have to accept the change, and then you have that period at the end where you feel like you get the reward from the change, and hopefully that reward will be positive and it gives you positive feedback to then cement the fact that you're on the right path and you're doing the right thing. So it goes back to the two things. If you can monitor it, you can change it, and if you can do it consistently enough, you will then get an outcome that you will ultimately want. And if you don't get the outcome you want, be open-minded enough to look back and try and change something and then re-implement it back into your life and just be consistent with it again. So I hope it's been really beneficial today. It's something that I'm really passionate about, because for me, consistency in my life is really important. A lot of people from the outside think that consistency is boring, and yeah, it kind of is, because you're doing the same thing over and over again. But sometimes if you do have consistent things that you have to worry about, you consistently worry about being tired, not fitting workouts in, not being the shape that you want to do, not being like this, not being like that, not being able to achieve this, not having enough time. Maybe if you change something and do something consistently, you might find that actually you might be able to be liberated from all those things that you want to be doing, you don't have time to do. If you do a schedule consistently, you might find that you actually do have the time in your life to do these things. And therefore, you might then spend more time being annoyed, being uptight, being stressed about the things that you can't get done, rather than consistently doing all the things that you can get done, and then try and carve out that time somewhere else, maybe on the weekend, and you'll think you'll live a bit more of a fulfilled life, potentially, doing like that. I know for me personally, it's really worked. Getting annoyed at my wife to not let me go out in the evenings to do this, I've got to put the boys to bed, I've got to put the boys to bed to do this. And ultimately Tarana was like, well, if you want to do this event, then you've got to find time for it. It's not our fault. It's your choice. So I was like, actually, you're right. So she was like, just get up in the morning early and do it. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's 100% right. So it's actually my choice to do the event, and I'm punishing that I don't have enough time in the week, because I work and we have Naru and all these different things to do the training, but I need to try and find it out of my own schedule, so I then don't feel like I'm missing out the boys, missing out spending time with my wife, etc. And there you go. So made that change, and it's been fantastic. But sometimes you just need a bit of a hard truth. If it's not achieving what you want to do, it's because something that you're not doing. And usually, if you monitor it, you can change it, you do it consistently enough, you get the outcome you want. I hope you guys really enjoyed today's podcast. And keep listening, because we're going to have them firing out a bit more regularly now. All right. So thank you so much. And if there's anyone there that you know that might enjoy listening to this podcast, please share it. Please like it. Please follow us. It really does mean the world to us. Thanks so much.